Welcome to Case File Frequency, where every frequency carries a secret.
What is it about lost media? That whisper of something missing, a story you can't quite grasp. It's unsettling, right?
It really is. And today we're diving into one of the strangest examples, this supposed lost documentary, The Real Blair Witch.
Okay, The Real Blair Witch. Sounds familiar, but different.
Exactly. It caused a huge stir on Reddit. It's this tangled mess where performance art maybe collided with something genuinely terrifying.
So our mission today is kind of unraveling that. Where did it come from? What was supposedly in this footage?
Right. And looking at the real life incident behind it all, the lines got incredibly blurry. You'll see why people who stumble on this story, well, they don't easily forget it.
So where did this whole search even begin? You mentioned Reddit.
Yeah, it kicked off with a user called Emerald Spring. They were looking for this specific documentary described as true crime.
And they were clear this wasn't the famous movie, The Blair Witch Project.
Absolutely clear on that.
Yeah.
And they were frustrated, couldn't find it anywhere. The IMDb page, usually the go-to, was basically empty.
Empty how? Like nothing there.
Almost nothing. Just like one review, a release year, a director, that's it. Pretty barren.
Huh. But it had an IMDb page.
It did. And crucially, it had this explosive plot summary.
Okay, let's hear it.
It read, "A group of teenagers from Flint, Michigan filmed themselves kidnapping and terrorizing a new acquaintance before taking her out to the woods and dumping her in a shallow grave."
Wow. Okay, that's already intense.
It gets worse. They then taunt their terrified and blindfolded victim, asking if she had any last requests before they cut her throat.
Shit.
And then this question. But was the kidnap real or just a game? What is revealed is an extraordinary and disturbing record of a night when something went terribly, terribly wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I can absolutely see how that description would just ignite curiosity. What happened on Reddit then?
It blew up. People were immediately like, what is this? We have to find this. Total intrigue.
The idea of someone taking the Blair Witch concept and doing it for real. Or maybe for real.
Exactly. It sounded like an absolute nightmare scenario. Some were convinced it had to be out there, others were skeptical, but everyone was hooked.
Right.
And then, almost a year later, this other Redditor, Transbean8787, pops up and says that basically, the real Blair Witch isn't just real, it's a glance into one of the eeriest, most bizarre incidents that basically trapped nearly everyone involved.
Wow. Okay, so that confirms something exists or existed.
Yeah. And to really get it, you kind of have to rewind a bit, culturally speaking.
Back to the original Blair Witch Project.
Definitely. 1999. That film wasn't just a movie. It was like this huge cultural moment, a psychological experiment almost.
It totally blurred the lines, the way it was shot, the marketing. People thought it was real footage.
For sure. The shaky cam, the improv dialogue, the silences, it felt raw.
Yeah.
Unfiltered. It basically invented a whole new way to scare people by making them question reality itself.
And that had ripple effects, right? Beyond just the movie.
Oh, absolutely. Its success kind of opened the floodgates. You had horror fans, amateur filmmakers, everyone suddenly grabbing cameras and heading into spooky woods or abandoned buildings.
Making their own found footage stuff.
Exactly. The internet started filling up with these low-res videos, grainy footage claiming to be real paranormal encounters, real scares.
So it created this environment where maybe the lines got a bit too blurry for some people?
That's the scary part. What happens when a whole generation kind of grows up thinking the most terrifying things imaginable might just be caught on regular high-8 tape.
Which brings us back to this case, because it wasn't just a movie someone made.
No, this was an echo in real life. And the setting, Flint, Michigan, in 2002.
Flint, okay, so picture the scene.
Yeah, I mean, by 2002, Flint was, it was struggling. The auto industry decline hit hard. It was a city kind of haunted by, lost jobs, broken dreams, a pretty somber backdrop.
And who are the people involved in this incident?
Right, the players. You had 19-year-old Danielle Taylor. Then there was 20-year-old Travis Paya. He was the aspiring horror filmmaker.
Okay.
He lives with John Cockrell, another student, also a big horror fan. Their house was like the main hangout.
And others were there too.
Yeah, their circle included James Carwile, Christina Lum, and Derek Faxlinger. It seemed like a typical group of friends hanging out.
Until this one night, March 6th, 2002.
That's the night everything changed. Danielle was suddenly restrained, blindfolded, handcuffed, threatened with murder.
And they filmed it.
They filmed everything on a high-8 tape, which, fits that whole raw found footage look perfectly.
So the footage itself, what does it actually show?
It's deeply unsettling. It opens inside a house, dimly lit. Everything's got that eerie green tint from a night vision camera.
Okay.
Danielle's there, center frame. First, she just looks kind of annoyed. Travis Pyatt, he's the one filming, asks her, what would you say if you knew this was your last day on Earth?
How does she react?
She kind of smirks, tells him, fuck you, brushes it off. But you can feel the tension. Then a guy steps into frame holding a blindfold. A gag.
And the mood shifts.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Travis prompts her, like, say, ready, set, go. But she senses something's really wrong, refuses. Then multiple hands, just grab her. She struggles for a second, but yeah, it's clear she's caught.
It sounds terrifyingly real.
It looks it. Then the scene cuts. Now they're in a car.
Oh, okay.
Danielle's in the back seat, still blindfolded. She looks utterly terrified. Christina Lum is driving, just silent.
And the others?
The guys in the car start taunting her. Verbally at first, but then it escalates. Jonathan Cockrell actually presses a knife against her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they're hitting her with these questions like, did you have a good life? Say your last words to your family. If you could go back, change anything, would you?
What did she say?
She hesitates, sounds scared, tells her mom she loves her, says she's sorry for everything. And nobody in that car says anything reassuring. It's just pure psychological torment.
This is incredibly disturbing, and it doesn't end there.
No. The final act, it's chilling. The video cuts again. Now they're out in the woods, deep in the forest.
Okay.
James Carwile carries Danielle over his shoulder towards this shallow grave. They're already dug, maybe 2-3 feet deep.
They dug a grave beforehand.
Apparently. They set her down next to it, and they tell her what's going to happen. They're going to cut her, then bury her alive.
Jesus.
Travis Pyatt, the filmmaker, stands over the pit. He's got the knife. They pull the blindfold down so it's around her neck. She's just silent.
I can't even imagine.
Then Travis kneels down, brings the knife up to her throat, and he mimes slashing it.
Mimes it.
Mimes it. And Danielle just goes completely limp, plays dead. It's this moment.
Yeah.
It really hits home how far they went for that realism and how ambiguous everything became.
He's dead. Okay, so what happens then?
And then, it's like a switch flips. Abruptly, the whole group just starts laughing.
Huh?
Yeah. Pats on the back. They turn to the camera, introduce themselves one by one, explain their roles in the whole thing. They even take bows, grinning.
Unbelievable.
It's Danielle Taylor. She wasn't actually harmed physically. She wasn't going to die that night. Despite everything, the knife, the threats, the grit, it was all apparently a stunt, a prank for their movie.
A stunt. A prank. That's hard to process. Given what you just described, she must have been traumatized.
Well, yeah. According to reports, she was far from okay. I mean, just minutes before, she genuinely believed she was about to be murdered. The whole joke, if you can even call it that, was entirely at her expense.
So what does she do?
A few days later, she actually went back to the Pyatt house. They apparently invited her over to watch the tape, their masterpiece.
The series style.
Yeah, but she had a different idea. After they watched it, she secretly took the Pyatt tape, swapped it with a blank one or another one she brought,
Smart move.
and then she went straight to the police. Reported the whole group.
And arrests followed.
Within a week. Cockrell, Pyatt, Lum, Carwile, Faxlinger, all arrested. They were facing serious charges. Kidnapping, assault, looking at potential sentences, 7 years to life under Michigan law at the time.
And Danielle's story was consistent, that she had no idea it was fake.
Absolutely unwavering on that point. To her, it was real, terrifyingly real. And it's easy to empathize with that, right?
Of course.
I
And wasn't
know.
that simple? Usually these things aren't.
Right, and that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
As investigators and lawyers looked closer at the footage, as testimonies came out, some, let's say, cracks started appearing in that narrative.
Cracks. Like what?
Well, things that maybe didn't quite fit with someone in mortal terror. At one point on the tape, Danielle casually scratches her nose while supposedly restrained.
Okay.
Another point, she apparently asks if the rope holding her is tight enough.
That is odd.
And maybe the most jarring thing, just minutes after the reveal, after she supposedly thought she was dead, she's seen on camera laughing with the group.
Laughing. Okay, that's really hard to square with being terrified for your life moments before.
Exactly. It created this huge conflict. The prosecutor, Byron Conchu, he firmly believes she wasn't in on it until the very end. He said the prank was intended by the participants, but the last party, the victim, was not in on it.
But the defense saw it differently.
Completely. The defense attorneys argued the tape proved she knew it was a movie. They pointed to her lack of like desperate begging or struggling, the smiling afterwards.
Right.
One lawyer specifically said something like, she pretends to play dead for about a minute. If she truly thought she was going to be buried alive, she would have struggled.
So how do you even reconcile that? The same footage, two totally opposite interpretations.
You really can't. Easily. It left the court in this impossible position. A classic he said, she said, but with this incredibly disturbing video evidence that somehow supported both sides.
So nobody ever really knew for sure if she was acting or genuinely terrified.
Not the prosecutors, not the defense lawyers. According to the reports, nobody but Danielle Taylor herself knew what was truly going through her head that night.
What ended up happening legally then, with those serious charges?
Well, amid all this ambiguity, things started resolving through deals. Christina Lum took a plea bargain, pleaded to attempted felonious assault, got a suspended 6-month sentence.
Good.
Derek Faxlinger just had to pay a $200 fine. Jimmy Carwile got 4 months, suspended. And Paella and Cockrell, kind of seen as the main guys, they got 8-month suspended sentences after probation.
So suspended sentences mostly. They served probation time, but no long prison terms.
Right, they all served their time, whatever it was, and got out. But then, the story takes another dark turn.
How so?
Tragedy just seemed to follow them. Travis Paella, the aspiring filmmaker, the ringleader, he died on April 18, 2006.
Wow, not long after.
No. Then Derek Faxlinger died February 12, 2007. And Jonathan Cockrell died February 19, 2014.
All of them. How old were they?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
All under 35. Travis, Derek, John, gone. 3 of the 4 guys involved in that night.
That's eerie. It does sound almost like a curse, like you hear in horror stories.
Yeah, that speculation definitely started swirling online, that the whole real Blair Witch incident had somehow doomed them.
Was there any actual information about how they died? Or just speculation?
Initially, it was mostly just rumors, bits and pieces, like forum posts on My Death Space guessed Travis Paella's death involved drugs. An old article mentioned Derek Faxlinger died from an epileptic seizure and his organs were donated.
But nothing definite linking it back to the stress or fallout from the case.
Not really, no. It remained kind of murky. Until a full year after that original Reddit post by Emerald Spring. Remember TransBean8787 confirmed it was real. Well, another user surfaced, Beef Brothel.
Could be beef brothel. What did they add?
This person claimed they were actually a friend of the group back then, knew them all, and they came forward with a lot of new details, trying to set the record straight, basically.
About the deaths.
Yes. Beef Brothel gave specific causes. Said Derek did have a seizure, but it happened in the shower. Travis, they said, had a really bad tooth infection, and that was a major factor in his death.
Okay. And Jonathan Cockrell.
John, according to Beef Brothel, became depressed after his mother died, started partying more, and died from an accidental overdose. Beef Brothel sounded quite sad, saying they were still angry at him for being so careless.
So, tragic circumstances, but not supernatural.
Exactly. And Beef Brothel was very clear on this point. None of their deaths were because of the pressure of the case.
That's a significant clarification. Did Beef Brothel say anything else? About Danielle, maybe?
Yeah, and this really adds another layer of complexity. Beef Brothel claimed that Danielle actually apologized to them after the fact and insisted that she never wanted any of this to happen.
She apologized after reporting them.
That's what Beef Brothel claimed. But then they added another twist, claiming Danielle was actually known to our graduating class as a notorious exaggerator before any of this ever happened.
Oh, okay, so questioning her credibility even before the incident.
Right, and suggesting maybe she got caught up in it. Beef Brothel wrote, she was young and was being told by a lot of authority figures that she had to go along with this prosecution.
So maybe pressured into pursuing the charges?
That's the implication. Beef Brothel also suggested Danielle might have thought taking the tape would actually help them, prove it was just a joke, and everyone would get off easy. Not realizing, apparently, that John had paused the recording at key moments.
Pause the recording, so the tape she took wasn't even the full continuous event.
According to this account, potentially not, which adds yet another layer of ambiguity. Beef Brothel even mused, part of me thinks she initially enjoyed the initial attention, but it spiraled way out of control.
Wow. That really complicates the victim narrative, doesn't it? It shifts it towards something messier.
Less black and white, more shades of gray, intentions, consequences, perception, all tangled up.
Did Beef Brothel offer any context for why the group would even do something like this? Beyond just making a horror movie?
Yet they tried to explain the group dynamic, said stuff like they participated in these types of pranks on all of our friends weekly. They made a dozen backyard horror films. They spent all of my free time with them for years.
So this kind of extreme stuff wasn't totally out of the blue for them.
Apparently not. Beef Brothel pointed to the influence of shows like Jackass and, of course, the Blair Witch Project, called this incident a mashup of the two genres.
Okay, I can kind of see that vibe. Prank culture meets found footage horror.
Right, and they described this culture around their hangout spot, Rancho, saying, "We all knew that if you went to Rancho, you could get pranked. It was just how things were."
So an established pattern of boundary pushing.
Seems like it. And then, this really chilling detail. Beef Brothel claimed they did almost the exact same thing to another friend a week or two before, and she was the one who suggested they film it next time.
Whoa. Okay, if that's true, that changes things again. It suggests this wasn't solely targeted at Danielle.
Exactly. It paints a picture of a group escalating their own extreme performance art, or pranks. Beef Brothel's conclusion was stark. It was always a prank, and everyone except the law knew that.
That perspective makes it sound less like calculated malice and more like a catastrophic failure of judgment. A prank that went horrifically wrong because they lost sight of consent and consequences.
Precisely. A really disturbing example of performance art, maybe bleeding into reality with devastating results.
So wrapping this all up, the real Blair Witch. It's this incredibly bizarre, unsettling story from the fringes of lost media.
Yeah, it's more than just a lost tape mystery. It's a reflection of fear, sure, but also a really chilling look at what can happen when that line between screen horror and real-life actions gets erased.
And the ethical mess when intent, perception, and trauma all collide.
Absolutely. It leaves you, the listener, wrestling with these questions that maybe don't have easy answers.
Like, how far might someone go to escape a place, a life that feels like a dead end, like Flint was for some of them?
And the central mystery. Was Danielle truly a terrified victim throughout? Or was she complicit, at least partly, until it spiraled? The ambiguity, even with video, is profound.
And we may never see that full original tape. If it even still exists, unedited, the story of Danielle Taylor and this group will just live on through these reports, these conflicting accounts.
Always shattered by that question, did she really know? Did anyone fully grasp what was happening? Maybe we'll never have the final answer. It's a lost media mystery that just keeps echoing.